Well, welcome everybody. So today I'm very excited to introduce you one of our Haylen's agents. As a matter of fact, he's also my brother-in-law, but he has like tremendous experience in the real estate industry. He has, well, maybe I should let him talk more about his experience. So how do you do due diligence for investors, especially a lot of our investors are from out of state or out of town investors, and also on apartment buildings. So what is your process like to do these due diligence for investors?
Well, the first thing, it's kind of similar with any type of real estate investment. You're going to have to understand the investor's financials, their purchasing power, and then, have the dialogue to know what they're looking for. Just to say that I want a rental property is very broad. So you're going to drill down into specifics. And then once the baseline financials are understood, then you go into what classes you want to target. Some investors like to do a lot of their own work. And so they might be okay with, properties that will need some hands-on maintenance, fixing up units, just the day-to-day stuff that they're okay managing. Others, they want to be more backseat. They want something they're willing to sacrifice, the cap rates or returns on the front end, but they just wanted to trust it into the hands of good property managers and just kind of let it run on its own. So it's really, everything's unique. And then you determine the next steps after you conclude like what direction you're going to want to go.
And let's say if they found a property that they really like, an apartment buildings with, we've done 20, 25 or more units, then you have to now go in there to visit. Do you
Right.
actually help the clients to arrange so that you can see every single unit? Because there are some agents that we've talked to, the listing agents especially, probably saying like, you serious? You're going to see every single unit? I can only show you a few units. So how do you navigate that when the listing agent's not allowing you to look at every single unit?
So first off, I mean, other than unforeseen circumstances, say the tenant is sick or whatever, if it's a special unique case, then we'll probably work around it. But by law, with proper notice, the agent and or the property manager can access the unit. So that's a given. So if that's being used as a reason for not getting in, that side is not doing the proper work, because legally an owner or their representative has a right to inspect the unit. So that'll resolve that. For us, when we're helping investors buy, it's an absolute must that we're basically going to examine every inch of the property that we have access to. So that means every single unit.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's why it's so important that investors need to know that they have the right to actually look at every single unit. Don't let other parties say like, no, nobody look at every single unit, which I have heard that from the other side of the agents before, telling us that nobody looks at every single unit. That's not true. You do have the right to look at it. Awesome. And then what are the things that you would do when you get to go into the units to do the inspections? What kind of things that you would do besides waiting for the inspector to finish doing their inspections?
Well, so once an offer is accepted and we have the access all scheduled. I mean, first off, you'll get all the necessary inspectors. Normally, for any type of building, it's similar to a single family. You'll do the general home inspection, termite, but for apartment buildings, even duplexes, you want to probably get the additional roof inspections, sewer line inspections, and a lot of that also is dictated by the age of the building. So most importantly is we always recommend that the client is there for at least one of the inspections, which normally is when we hire the inspectors, and we'll walk through as many as they can. But when I go with them to the inspections, I'm there pretty much from the beginning to the end, going through every unit, just, looking at what the inspector's looking, asking the questions and getting the direct feedbacks, and which also helps. And when I do the summary after it's all completed.
Yeah, and sometimes you might see the tenants in the units too.
Right. Yeah, and that's happened quite a bit, and you actually get some good info.
Mm-hmm.
So some shocking info, but I think the most important thing is to understand how that property has been managed, how the communication's been, and just overall just get kind of the direct feedback from the tenants about the owner or the property manager, and that it's very important. And
Yeah,
they're quite comfortable in opening up too, and because if not all tenants complain, but a lot do, obviously. But it's a matter of just understanding and then communicating that back to them, to the owner.
yeah. That's why it's so important for us to be there at the inspection, because that's the time you get to talk to the tenants, and tenants see somebody there to do inspection. They're like, okay, this is the time where I have to voice my
Yep.
concern or whatever it is. And then that's when you're here. It's like, okay, maybe the previous seller haven't been doing these things, or they might say, no, everything is great. And okay, this seller has been taking care of the property, which is a good sign. And
Yeah, and to add to that, I think it's very important, and this happened on more than one occasion. The unit looks fine, but when talking to the tenant, they'll tell a little backstory. There was a
mhm.
pretty significant leak, and why that occurred, and what happened, and how long it took for them to remedy it. And so, yeah, there's not going to be better feedback than getting it from the tenant that lives inside a unit.
Totally, totally. Which actually happened to us before, because sellers never really, I don't want to say never, but they will kind of make the situation sound less severe.
Of course. Of
Right.
course.
And
Yeah.
then the tenants will tell you the actual what happened. And that's, then you can really share that information with the client. So now I want to ask you, now at the time of this recording, we are kind of still in this coronavirus pandemic. And do you want to talk a little bit about what you are observing, the market of the multifamily space?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, obviously, this industry took a pretty significant pause, but even with that, activity was still pretty consistent. Um, it's real estate. I didn't foresee that the government was gonna we had to prop up real estate to the best of its ability, because we went through a pretty significant recession 10 years ago that was directly caused by this industry. So, and the recovery and ramifications coming from that it took extremely long, and it just decimated so many households. So this was a shock to everybody, but the industry still maintained, and specifically, and obviously, just on a side note, the retail commercial side is pretty heavily affected right now. But for our discussion, residential, especially the multi units, it's been strong. I mean, I can't even just say it's stable. Across the state of California and even many other states, it's stayed very strong with minimal delinquencies. And people want housing. They need housing. They understand the importance of housing. And regardless, they might have to sacrifice some other expenses, but it appears that rents and mortgages are getting paid,
Mhm.
which goes to the point of how good of an investment, real estate is and can be.
And when you say it's very strong, you're talking about like the payment of the rent to the landlord, unlike what the news have been saying. Oh, there's going to be 30% delinquency
Right.
in terms of rent payments. But from we both talk to a lot of landlords, a lot of property managers and investors. we haven't had one told us that, yeah, we have a 30% delinquency right now.
No, I mean, it really, and this is just us on a personal level. Yes, we're getting the direct feedback, and I don't recall anybody that had more than a 10% delinquency. Everybody's
Yeah.
running 90% plus on payments.
Mm-hmm.
And even more so, even the bigger players in our industry, every report that I've read or webinar I've sat in, it's consistent across the board. Landlords, the ones that did take the initiative, got creative, made the necessary contact when this happened, make sure the communication was right. And, there's some modifications on lease terms might have existed, but as far as, flat out not paying rent, yeah, that's just, we're just not seeing it.
Yeah. We both have some clients that are in the Bay Area, the metro area, but then we also have some clients invest in like Stockton area. So a lot of times we're worried about, especially Class C area, that tenants will not be paying. And what we have noticed is that nowadays seems like more and more people are doing Section 8, or they have Section 8 tenants. Do you see that trend as well?
Well, in light of the current pandemic, the subsidized housing like Section 8 came to the forefront because obviously a certain portion is covered by a government program. And that's, yeah, for lack of a better word, it's guaranteed rent that they're going to be able to pay. And so, yes, definitely seen that across the board. And I think before there was certain stigmas around it, but at the end of the day, you want to get rent paid, and there's no better guarantee than a government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, what if we have like first-time investor? Actually, we have a lot of clients who went from buying their first home, and then they said, okay, now we own our first home, we want to start buying investment property. What would you recommend to first-time investors who want to buy an apartment building?
So this goes back to the earlier conversation. We would evaluate and discuss what they're looking for. There's many different kinds of factors involved with income property. The most important thing being that you don't want to lose money. And so it becomes, do you want to be a passive owner or an active owner? And what are you looking to do? Do you want to, just stay within safe, like good neighborhoods and maybe get a 2 to 4 unit building, or do you want to go to the 5+ units and go into the true multifamily space? So I mean, it's unique and individual to each person, but at the end of the day, once you own a home and then you want to expand your portfolio, there's really no better avenue than to get more units.
Yeah, and what would you say some of the common mistakes that investors make, especially if they are first-time investors in the apartment side or in the income property side?
Well, the one of the most important thing is to have a solid team, and that's just, it's not, I mean, obviously the agents that you have that represent you need to be established and understand it well, but it's really a lack of knowledge. A lot of times there's astute ones that will do their own research and get into it, but you can only read so much. You need the direct feedback from professionals that have been in the space and understand it. So consistently, I'm going to say it's a lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the major hurdle that you have to overcome.
Yeah, and I think also sometimes I get nervous when investors say like, "Oh, I'm going to buy this property, and it's okay if we negative for a little bit, but I'm buying for the equity anyways." For us both, when we talk about this all the time, it's like, gosh, we just don't want to see, even though we know there's going to be increase in equity, we just don't feel comfortable when our clients are going in with a negative cash flow right off the bat.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and this goes back to position. If the investor is well capitalized, then they can take on that kind of investment, but for the most part, especially for first time investors, you don't want to enter that point where you're starting in the negative, because another thing that's consistent in investment property is that you're going to have a lot of unexpected events that occur.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the best way to assure that it stays stable is to get on the front end, do enough of the analysis to assure that you don't want to go into something negative and hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, here's another question. I mean, I know you're not a CCIM yet, but then we have been using the CCIM analysis, 10 years analysis model. I've been teaching workshops, teaching people how to use CCIM analysis, and I also have been saying that, I'm quoting Bruce Lee. It's like he fears people who he does not fear people who do 10,000 kicks once, but he fears those people who do that one kick 10,000 times. And then every single analysis that we do for our clients, no matter if they're making an offer or not, we always use that CCIM analysis. What do you think? How do you think that CCIM 10-year analysis have been helping us when we go over the numbers with our clients?
Yeah, so I'm gonna preface this by, first off, the CCIM designation that I've seen is probably one of the best in the industry without question, just because of the qualifications needed. So going back to our first conversation of my reluctancy to join, and when I found out you became involved with this and became a member and saw the ins and outs of that group, that to me is a true professional. They're specific to the commercial space, but regardless, commercial real estate is a big economic indicator, and they do a great job. Now, the question of the 10-year analysis, it's easily the most comprehensive tool or template that I've seen. There's a lot of things available out there, but this takes into consideration basically every single factor that needs to be reviewed and analyzed before making a final decision. And it's probably easily the best tool that I've seen.
Good. Yeah, I love it. I think that's one analysis. We are able to explain everything to our clients, and then every time it's make it really clear for our clients to say like yes or no to an investment. So, well, thank you so much, Peter. I think we went over the time, but at the same time, this is like a lot of information that you're sharing. So, really looking forward to helping even more clients in the future.
Glad to do it.
All right, talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching our YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like our videos, make some comments, because we're going to keep you posted on the most updated real estate news, housing market data, and also real estate tips and advice from all over the real estate industry. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.